Police say the gunman who opened fire at the Bronx courthouse yesterday was possibly seeking revenge for the murders of 6 people on Valentine's Day. Police say Gilberto Ortiz was wearing a bulletproof vest when he walked into the Bronx County Courthouse. He shot 3 people, killing a 22-year-old woman.
4 federal agents died in the Sunday morning shootout there in Texas. 16 others were wounded. One of the bloodiest days ever for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms.
In the streets of America, there are now 50 million handguns. Last year, handgun violence reached an all-time high.
A number of officers were forced to return fire because this man was leaning out the window with an automatic weapon, spraying the police with gunfire.
The next day, this 14-year-old kid who looked like a choir boy sprayed his neighborhood with gunfire, killing a cop, wounding 3 others.
My son was that shot, that's it.
He was hurting pretty bad. He had a big hole in the shoulder.
Many of these wounds are gunshot wounds to the top of the head.
Every day, more and more stories appear on the news about people using guns to hurt each other, to kill each other, whether it may be by accident or deliberate. Just when you think of seeing it all, another story comes on that makes the news even worse.
Kept on shooting. Just kept on shooting. He shot her.
We're certainly concerned about it.
This is a very scary place to be.
When does it stop? When does it end? Hello, my name is Sophia Stroh from the Panasonic Kid Witness News team in Brooklyn, New York, PS41. Here in Brownsville, we too have suffered the heartache, the fear, the tragedy of adults, teenagers, and children using guns. Our Kid Witness News team interviewed several people from our community concerning their feelings about this very serious problem. They included Brooklyn Deputy Borough President Jeanette Gatson, from the 73rd Precinct Police Officer Elvita Davis, from the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office Assistant DA Ray Grazing, from Our Lady of Mercy Church Father Jim Sweetie and Sister Eileen Payne, from the Wendy's Assistant Manager Stanley Taylor, and from our school PS41, Principal Gary Wexler, Assistant Principal Caroline Key, Teacher Sharon Wallace, Guidance Counselor Leona Hibbert, Paraprofessional Vivian Moss, along with several parents and of course several of our classmates. So sit back, relax, and get ready for some very interesting conversation. Do you ever find yourself afraid to go outside because of all the people carrying guns?
Yes, because you could be walking down the street and all this gunfire going on. You could just be an innocent bystander and get shot.
Yes. You know, every night when I close, I'm always afraid to go outside, but that's my job. You know, I have to leave the store. I can't stay here all night. You know.
I won't go outside unless I'm with a group of people. I used to love to go to Manhattan and walk around after a play in the city, and I really would not do that. If I do go, I'll make sure my car is parked right next to the theater. So yes, guns have definitely affected how I feel about going outside by myself.
I mean, I'm not going to stop doing anything. I'm going to go places and do things because I think if I stay inside and hide, then the people who have the guns and are selling the guns have destroyed my freedom and your freedom, you know? So I refuse to give up, but sometimes it's scary.
Do you think it's too easy to buy a gun these days?
Yes.
Can you tell us why?
Because it's a lot of places where guns will be sold, and people, they just go in and then they just buy it. Because a lot of people know where these places are.
How do you feel about this?
Well, I'm kind of scared of guns. I don't like guns.
Do you think it's too easy to buy a gun?
Yes.
Why?
Because now kids are getting these guns, so I guess if kids are buying guns, I guess they are too easy to buy guns.
Why? Because a gun, of course, is a weapon. A gun takes people's lives, and it's ridiculous to think that you can get a gun as easy as some people go into the store and get a soda or get a box of candy. And this is what's happening to our city and our country.
Did you ever have any incidents with a gun?
And I'm going to cry because I can't take that part, okay? I really can't. You want me to tell you about it? I'll try. A year ago, I was sleeping, and my son came to the bed, and he was shaking me, wake up, wake up. And I pulled from him, and I turned over. He says, no, you can't go back to sleep. You have to wake up. Mommy, Mommy, there was gunshots. And somebody is down. I think the person that's down, we know him and he's dead. They're dead. And as he pulled me up, he was handing me different pieces of clothing to put on. And it took a time. I finally got dressed. I went to get my sneakers, and I went to put my socks on. He jerked the socks from my hand. He says, go, go, you gotta go. I went to the window, and all I could hear was screaming. People screaming, people crying. So I finally got my shoes on. My son wants me to stop smoking. I went to the bathroom and stood at my son handing me my keys so I can get back in. He handed me my cigarettes. And when I went downstairs, one of my neighbors said to me, don't walk over there, don't go by the sand, don't even look. I said, well, who is it? And he kept shaking his head. His son goes to this school. He says, Vivian, don't go over there. And when I went to look, there was a young guy, 1 year older than my son, who used to play with my son. There he was, laying in the spot where they had played at as little guys. And when they picked him up to put him on the stretcher, he's still alive. There was no blood, so that meant that he was bleeding internally. Then the hurting thing of it is to see my friend been led from the building, and she didn't want to. Her face said, no, it's not my child laying there. And she was just looking around, and she didn't know what to do. And because I really, as she was walking, I just knew she was looking and saying, please God, let my kid be standing in that crowd, because that was the look on her face. And then off to the hospital they went. And to this day, he's still walking around with the bullet in the back of his heart. He has to go every so often to be checked. If that bullet, if the gun had been a newer model, he would have been dead. The bullet inside the gun was rusty. So that's why it did not kill him. When they opened him up, the bullet was here. But they couldn't get to it because he was bleeding too bad. So they had to stop the bleeding and get out. And from it turned, and now that's where the bullet is now, in the back of his heart. It has not moved. When you say guns, we've had a lot of incidents in my development with children, with young guys and guns. I don't like them. It hurts because a lot of the guys that I've worked with, we had a rap section. A few of them have been shot. And it's not an easy thing. When you see children, when you know children, and you see them from the time they was born, and then have a bullet to take them down, it hurts. It hurts. And then you try to tell them, or you try to help them to go in the right direction. There's always somebody out there to say, yo, man, this is the way, you know? And it's not the way. You have kids 12, 13 years old. We have so many incidents. One of the girls that live in my development is sitting right here, and she knows, she hears the gunshots at times. Myra, and she hears them. I got so now I even look out my window. It hurts. It hurts. I'm sorry, but when it comes down to guns, it brings back too many memories.
My husband was a victim of a gunshot. My husband took a bullet in the temple of his head, in his back, and in his neck. That was, in fact, one of the most traumatic experiences I've ever had in my life. Okay, he was in full uniform, and someone decided that they hated what they call pigs and opened fire on him. He's very fortunate to be alive and basically in good health now, but that's something that I will never forget. Again, a gun in the hand of the wrong person.
I just had a case, I'm not even quite done with it yet, where 4 people were driving in a car, and they were pulled over because the car didn't have any license plates on it. And when the policeman pulled them over, he asked the driver to step out of the car, and he saw that the person behind the driver was acting nervously. So he asked that person to get out too. And when that second person got out, there was a .357 Magnum revolver on the floor of the car. Now, 2 people in that car, one who was sitting in the front seat on the passenger side and another who was sitting in the back seat on the passenger side, they were arrested, but they came in and said they had no idea the gun was there. Now, they were arrested just because the gun was on the floor. It's illegal to be in a car with a gun in it if you see it. So that's one case that just shows that how careful people should be around guns, because you're responsible for them even if you're only with people who have them. And even if they're not on your person, even if they're not really your gun, you're still responsible, and you can still go to jail for a long time for it.
What is your reaction to what happened to Mr. Daly, the principal who got shot a few weeks ago?
It scared me because, as Mr. Daly, I think nothing of following a kid outside or looking for a kid or something of that nature. And to think that while he was out looking for a child that was upset to bring him back to school and he was caught in a crossfire, that could happen to any of us. And being a supervisor in the school, you're concerned about the children. So it kind of scared me a little. And now I must be a little, I would say, a lot more careful about just running out after children and things such as that.
And again, one of the things of this, it was senseless violence. It could have been Mr. Daly. It could have been you if you were in the wrong place. It could have been me. It could have been anybody. And that's the part that's tragic, that anyone, no one is immune to that kind of violence.
Why do you think so many teenagers carry guns?
Because they scared and they think that they want to be cool and all of that.
Because some teenagers think that they want to protect themselves in a bad way. Some carry knives and guns But most of them carry guns just to protect themselves. What would you say to a teenager that says that they need a gun for their own protection?
What would I say to a teenager? As I said to the many boys in my rap group that I used to do, why do you need a gun? You don't need a gun. But you know what they say? It's not, it's what's happening. But you know what I tell them? Guns get you 6 feet. You know, the other day, one of my son's friends came home from school. He played hooky. He didn't really play hooky. He had went to school, but he had a little run-in with one of the kids. And you know what? You know what? I happened to catch him in my house. I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "You know what, Miss Vivian? I didn't have a gun. I didn't have an ice pick. I didn't have a knife, and I didn't have a chain. So I knew that I had to walk out after school because I knew he was going to be waiting for me on the outside." So I said, you still didn't need it. He said, "Oh, yes, I did, because I know that he had one."
Again, I don't think it really protects them. I think it makes, well, people are more unsafe when they have guns around. If you get into an argument and you lose your temper, or other people around you lose their temper, and you have a gun handy, maybe you'll solve your problem by using a gun. And that cannot lead to anything good. People get hurt, people die, and you'll probably wind up going to jail.
Why do you think so many kids have guns these days?
Because they want to solve their problems. If there's somebody in the school that's bothering them, and like I said, they see something on television where if I get a gun, I can use it to solve my problem, they will get the gun. They will go out and try to get it. They will try everything they can to get this gun because they figure this gun will solve their problem.
I think kids have guns because of fear. I think kids have guns because of greed. I think kids have guns because of drugs. I think they see guns as an easy way of getting what they want without having to pay any price. Everybody, I think, is afraid of guns so that I can feel powerful if I have a gun, and I can make you do what I want. So I think sometimes it's a case that kids don't feel good about themselves, and sometimes it's a case of greed, and sometimes it's a case of just plain not caring anymore.
Well, I really don't like anybody who's not trained in how to use a gun to actually have one. And children and teenagers, definitely, they shouldn't have guns. There's a lot of responsibility that goes with having a gun. I think the only people who should really have them are law enforcement people who have received the training. There's an awful lot of responsibility. If you fire a gun, you can end somebody's life. And I don't think children and teenagers should be able to have a gun and to be able to make that decision because I don't believe they're capable of it.
Life is a gift from God. And if we don't find a solution to the gun problem, many innocent lives are going to be lost.
And the Bible says, you know, he who lives by the sword shall die by the sword. And that happens an awful lot of times. But that's a poetic way of saying it. People who play with guns oftentimes wind up getting shot.
What do you think should be done about the problem of so many people carrying guns and people getting hurt and killed by them?
Well, first of all, I think that if a person have a gun, they should keep it away from their children. And if they're going to have a gun, to put it up in a safe spot where nobody can get hurt.
I think they should ban guns. They should only sell them to, like, people over 30.
I don't think anyone should be able to buy a gun very easily. I think there should be a long process in order to buy a gun and a good reason to have a gun.
I think that there should be more control over the guns. I think that if the government really wanted to control it, they could. I think it's like drugs, that if they decided they really wanted to control it, they could. I think they allow it to go on to a certain point because it's money making for some very big people. Believe you me, there are big people behind all these guns being sold on the street and things like that. So I think that it's kind of a money maker, and it's a sad situation to let money take the place of lives.
I think people who sell guns to children and teenagers should be asked what they believe in and why they need the money so badly, because we have so many children, so many adults hurt, murdered, shot accidentally. It's a terrible thing.
Well, first thing, it's illegal to sell guns to children and teenagers. That's the first thing. Second thing, I couldn't sleep at night. I don't know how they can sleep at night selling guns to kids, and these kids are going to end up hurting themselves or somebody else. It's just totally wrong.
What would you say to someone who sells guns to teenagers?
I would tell them they're not selling a gun so much as they're selling death. I think that probably wouldn't make a big difference to them, but I think it's really wrong, and I think they should serve a lot of time in jail, and it's not right. And they may be making money from selling guns, but the only thing you can use a gun for is to shoot something, and most times that'll be another person. So what they're really selling is selling death, and that's not right.
How do you feel about the guns in school?
Ashamed.
I don't think they should bring them to school because too many things happen in school.
How do you feel about guns in school?
It's dangerous.
Why?
Because you could be playing with it, you and your friend, and you could just shoot them by accident, and then it's too late to say sorry because they dead.
Do you want a gun when you grow up?
No.
Can you tell me why?
Because you don't have to have a gun to be somebody bigger or better.
Do you want to have a gun when you grow up?
Maybe for protection, but not just to go around killing nobody for no reason.
Do you want to have a gun when you grow up? Why?
No, because if I have children and I know that, see me, I like to put things around so that I can find them, and I never put things up. And I know that if I have children that they might play with it and someone would get hurt.
If you saw a gun, what would be your reaction?
To get away from it.
Why?
Because just by playing with a gun could cause your life.
Are you scared of guns?
A little.
What is your opinion on children who play with toy guns?
I have never bought a toy gun. I do not believe in toy guns. I don't like them as toys.
Do you think this might want to make them play with a real gun?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because toys are, when children play with toys, they're playing out real life situations. And when you play with a toy gun, I believe that it could turn into you're playing with a real gun.
Yes, as a matter of fact, some kids can't tell the difference between a toy gun and a real gun because there are some toy guns out here that look like real guns. And they play with them and they point them at people. And then if by some chance they get in contact with a real gun, they'll do the same exact thing, point the gun at somebody, pull the trigger, and then somebody's going to get hurt.
What would you say to a child who thinks playing with a gun is fun?
Well, it's not fun. I would tell him it's not fun. It's way too dangerous to be a toy. And that when he uses it, I mean, he could hurt somebody, he could hurt himself. And it's just, he shouldn't do it, and his parents should make sure that if they do have a gun, they keep it away from the child.
When people get shot, how do you feel?
I feel sad because somebody's life shouldn't be wasted for somebody else's mistake.
How do you feel about if someone gets shot right next to school and you see it on a school day? I feel terrible because maybe it could happen again. Maybe me or one of my friends.
It was one of your friends that shot the person.
Well, I already know that that person wouldn't be my friend anymore. What feelings go through your mind when you hear a child has been shot?
Scared because, first of all, I think about my own children.
I feel for the parent, what they have to go through with a lost child. It's a lot of things that go through my mind.
I really feel hurt and sad because the child is very innocent and doesn't know about guns, but the one who hurt the child with the gun, I think they should be put in jail for a very long time.
When a kid gets shot, I think I want to just get sick. You know, we've had children who have been shot accidentally. I visited children in the hospital, but there's no easy way to go through it. It's a very painful, hurtful situation, and people need to see the pain so they'll think about what they can do to somebody else. They need to think about other people, and sometimes we only think about ourselves.
We're in a point in our lives where we have a solution for a lot of problems. We have a remedy for some cancer. There are a lot of things we can address, and we're not able to work with violence. We're not able to do much about guns. And a lot of innocent people are being shot.
Do you think there are some movies and television shows which are too violent for children?
Yes.
Can you tell us why?
Well, like in Home Alone, when he was watching the movie and the man shot the other man, I think that was violent.
Well, one is juice. Basically, that my little nephew wants to get a gun already since he didn't watch that so much.
Do you think kids get ideas from violent movies that they watch?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because most of the kids think that the heroes in the movie that uses guns, they always survive, and they think that they could do the same thing.
Yes, there's a lot of television shows that are violent for children, and they're too violent for children. And children watch these movies, and they feel that they can do the same thing. They can shoot somebody, the person's going to get up, walk around the next day, no problem. And they don't know that it's different on television than real life.
Yes, they are. It's a whole lot of shows that should be taken off the air. But as parents, we should pay more attention to what our children do and what they watch on television.
Well, I'm going to say yes, but on TV today, there's so many things. It's very difficult to keep your children from watching certain shows, especially if you're not in the room with them. I think what you have to do is sit down and talk to your kids, explain right from wrong, that guns is not good and these shows, but the shows don't necessarily lead to them being violent. You have to talk about it, as with everything else with your children, and make sure that you're very interested and that they understand that violence, that's TV, that's not real.
Yes, I do. There are television shows, there are movies, there are magazine pictures, newspaper articles that are too violent, but, and this I firmly believe, I don't think any case of violence is the cause of that. I think each of us should watch these shows. If you're young enough, check with your parents first, but know that if you're watching a movie, that it is make-believe. I don't think anyone could turn around and blame television for causing this act, for this event to happen, or watch a movie and say, oh, from that movie, I'm going to now carry a gun. So I think it's too easy to blame other people. It all has to come from ourselves.
Do you think there are some movies and television shows that encourage kids to buy guns and use them?
Well, I don't think the movies in themselves set out to encourage it, but I think sometimes young people see the movies and they get, all caught up in what it's like, like New Jack City and, all those movies. They see the violence and they get caught up in it, But I don't think the movies set out to say that as a message that it's good to have guns. But I just think they're making the movie to make money, and they don't really care.
If you live in an area where you hear a lot of gunfire, where a lot of people have guns and use them all the time, that'll already put the idea in your head, not so much the TV shows. But the TV shows may make you immune to the real consequences of what using a gun can result in. it can only lead to death and a lot of hurt and heartache to people, and that's not good. And maybe the TV shows don't really show that enough.
Do you think violence is the solution to a problem?
No, I think communication is the solution to a problem. I think we need to look at sources and reasons why people feel that they need to fight and then work those issues out. We need to look at the root of the problem and not fight, but talk to one another for a solution so that everyone wins and no one loses.
Do you think too many fights and arguments are getting solved by guns?
Yes. A lot of fights and disputes are being solved by using guns. And it doesn't settle the situation, doesn't stop it at all. You have two groups. One group brings a gun, somebody gets shot. The other group turns around and they get guns and they turn around and handle it the same way. Next thing you know, you have a full-scale war on your hands. Everybody's using guns to solve their problems, and that it doesn't solve anything at all.
I think violence is a bad thing. It really is. No one wins. Someone dies or someone gets hurt, or all the people involved in that situation will get hurt. No one really wins when there is violence.
You know that in Brooklyn alone last year, over 800 people were murdered. In New York City, it was over 2,000. That's more than all the people who were killed last year in Japan. Now, if guns didn't exist, people would still die, but hopefully not as many. It wouldn't be as easy to kill somebody if you couldn't get your hands on a handgun.
I would advise kids who want to play with guns not to. Don't play with guns. It's a dangerous weapon. It will kill. Even if they find a gun, whether it's out in the street or at home or at a friend's house, you find a gun, it's interesting. We understand that they're excited. They found something new. If they start playing with it, someone's going to get hurt. And one of the worst things in the world for a police officer to turn around and respond to a scene where a child has been shot. I mean, it affects every police officer that's on that scene.
Have you ever had to give someone a funeral because they got shot by a gun?
Oh, yeah. Lots of times. It's very sad. Very sad.
The Bible tells us to love one another. Why aren't all of these teenagers getting the message?
I think they're not getting the message because they're not seeing adults who are giving them good example. You can't learn to love anybody unless somebody loves you first. So you need to see good example, whether it's on the television, in our homes, on our streets. Too many people are not being honest. And so teenagers have no thought about being honest.
Do you think guns are the reason the world is so bad today?
I don't think there's one reason. I think that's part of the reason. But guns don't make the world bad by themselves. It's the people who carry the guns. It's the people who use the guns. It's the finger behind that trigger that releases that bullet. That's what makes the world bad.
Do you think the president should do something about this?
Yes, I do, because he's the president. He's supposed to help us and fix our problems.
Guns are dangerous. Guns kill.
Nobody but the person that has the gun. You know, that's the one to blame. It's not me. It's not the legislators. You know, it's not it's not the guy that sold the guy the gun. You know, it's the person that has the gun. You know, if you're not licensed to carry a gun, you shouldn't have a gun. You know, so I'm not going to blame the guy that sold the guy the gun. I'm going to blame the guy that has the gun. You know, so that's my opinion about who to blame about the gun.
What do you think our world would be like if we never found a solution to the gun problem?
Well, I think there'd be a lot more deaths, a lot more tragedies. There'd be a lot more heartbroken families, and it don't look good for the future.
So that no matter how strong we believe that we are up here in our heads, don't ever think that your parents aren't a little bit wiser than you. Listen to what it is that they have to say.
We ended our tape with an excerpt from a speech made to our school by Jeanette Gasson, the Deputy Borough President of Brooklyn.
And talk to your teachers, and talk to your friends, and talk to your relatives, but talk about it. to somebody. Talk about it. Don't keep it inside. Don't get mad. Don't hurt each other. I'm going to tell you something. I've been to too many funerals for young people. And I'm not going to bury no more of y'all, because I want you to live. You owe that to me. So if somebody steps on your toe, and you get an attitude about it, don't worry about it. You got 9 more toes, okay? You got 9 more toes. So try to get an apology, and if that don't happen, just keep on keeping on, because you got a mission, and you ain't got time to worry about somebody just stepped on your toe, and now you want to blow their brains out. Guns is bad. Guns is bad. You ain't got no business dealing with no guns or dealing with no people that's dealing with guns. Guns kill people. This is not television. You don't wake up the next morning and then that same actor's on TV. When somebody shoots you out here, you dead. You're not coming back. It's over. You are a memory, okay? So forget about the guns and forget about the drugs.